Hello, and welcome to this on-demand webinar, Get Started with Project Planning in Capacity Planner. If you're a resource manager or project manager needing to plan ahead for any type of project, this webinar is for you. Here's the agenda for this session. We'll start by answering the question, what is Capacity Planner? And we'll look at the two basic scenarios that organizations use with it. Then we'll move into why you're here, and give an overview of the workflow for project planning in Capacity Planner. The main event is a walkthrough demo on how to use specific features in Capacity Planner to help you plan your projects. We'll finish off the webinar by talking about how Capacity Planner integrates with other Tempo apps. But first, here are some quick housekeeping items before we get started. Since this is an on-demand webinar, feel free to skip ahead to specific sections that interest you or that you want to learn about. If you have any questions while you are watching, you can reach out to our team in the corresponding link on this page. At the end of this on-demand webinar, we'll provide you with some next steps to keep you going on your learning journey. So, what is Capacity Planner? It's a flexible and scalable planning, scheduling, and reporting tool for Jira that enables organizations to optimize resource and team capacity in less time and with more accuracy. Capacity Planner helps you move from guesswork to clarity. It gives team leads and resource or project managers a flexible, visual way to plan work and see where there's availability or overload. Whether it's work for the upcoming sprint or for a big project slated to start months from now, Capacity Planner helps organizations schedule the right resources at the right times. Capacity Planner provides tools for team planning at both the team level and the team member level. Scrum teams can plan work automatically using existing Jira data such as iteration cycles, story points, and boards. Resource and project planning is the other common workflow, and that's what we'll be focusing on in this webinar. Whether your organization is bidding for customer projects a few months down the road, or your company wants to plan its delivery schedule for the year, there can be many unknowns. Will you have enough resources? Who's available in that time frame? And do they have the correct skills? Resource and project managers need to find and plan for the right resources for upcoming projects. And this is where Capacity Planner's rich feature set can help you. So, let's go through a quick overview of what you need to plan ahead using Capacity Planner. First off, we'll cover how to find the resources you need for a project. Then we'll show how to run a capacity report to measure how your current resources compare to the anticipated demand and identify any gaps between the two. Creating generic resources lets you fill those gaps with temporary placeholders for real resources. And this lets you do your high-level planning to block out time for all the resources you need for your project. As the project gets going and work is picked up, you can make more detailed plans on specific work items and balance the workload among the resources. We'll also cover the two-way sync between plans and Jira, which is a powerful tool for saving you time and helping you stay on top of what's happening. At any point after you've started planning, you can run a planned time report to get planned time and capacity data on each resource. And now we're going to give you a walkthrough of this project planning workflow in Capacity Planner.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name's Edna, and I'm a learning content specialist here at Tempo. And today I'm going to walk you through the workflow that we just shared. As a resource or project manager, you'll see how to use Capacity Planner to find the resources that you need and then plan for your upcoming projects. So let's start out here in Jira. And to find Capacity Planner after you've installed it, just open Apps on the sidebar and click Tempo. If you also have timesheets installed, it's probably going to show up first, but just click this icon up here and select Capacity Planner, and it opens up. So here we are in the team planning view, which is empty right now, and we'll cover team planning in another webinar. But we want to be in the resource planning view, where you can do planning for individual resources. And I can see all the users on my Tempo instance here. So here's the scenario. My fictional company called Lunar Industries wants to start a mineral mapping project on the moon that would start next year. The resource manager needs to staff up for it, and then the project manager needs to actually scope out and plan the work. They've already done a pretty good estimate on the time, capacity, and skills required for it based on capacity and plan time report data from previous projects. So now let's start planning by staffing up with resources. First, I'll go up here on the left and set the planning period to show when the project will be, from the beginning of January to the end of March. And we'll just go to early April to give us a whole week. In this time frame, I now need to find out who's available with the very specific set of skills that's required. And to do this, I'll use filters up here. I'll filter by skills, and I could select just the ones that I want here. But I already have a filter saved called mineral mapping, so I can just select that from the list. And with that filter on, you can see that the list of users is quite a bit shorter, which is great. I'll also go to the settings up here at the top right and turn on Show Skills. And now I can see everyone's skill set, which is very useful. Because I've asked the resources to plan their personal time off, it's clear who's available when. And you can see some company travel for Catherine here, Eric's vacation, and a planned medical leave for Lars. I will need to see if the resources I want here have capacity and availability to work on the project. So just scrolling ahead, it looks like everyone is pretty much clear in February and March, which is great. By clicking the A up here, I can sort by who has the most available hours, which is a quick way to visually assess capacity for this time frame. I'll click it again, and now it's sorted by the fewest available hours. And I'll just sort by username again. So these green, yellow, and red bars also show how much the resource is booked. And if you hover over each day for each user, you can see how many hours are booked out of how many hours are available for work. So right away, you can see where there's room for more work or where somebody is overbooked, like Vivian here. I can also see that some of these resources have their time already booked on other projects for most of January, so that could be an issue. It looks like I'll be needing another geologist and a mining engineer for the beginning of the project. So I might have to hire someone, or maybe they'll come from another team. I don't know who that will be yet, so I'll use these generic resources since they have the skills that I filtered for. And generic resources are placeholder users. They're not actual Jira users. So you can use them when you don't know exactly who the resource will be, such as someone to be hired or a contractor. And these resources let you keep on planning so that you can get a sense of capacity required for a project. So to create a generic resource, just click Plan Time up here and select Generic Resource as the resource type. And then start typing a name in this field, like New Hire. Then when you assign a plan, that resource is created, but I'll just cancel that out. You can then edit the resource and add skills to it from this list here, or you could even rename it here. You can also add generic resources to Tempo teams, which you might find useful for managing them and running reports later on. So I've got a rough idea on who we need for the project, and now I can get more accurate numbers by running a capacity report from the top right here. I'll enter the start date and the end date for my project, and I'll keep the breakdown as a summary. And if you already have time planned for the generic resources, you can include them in this report, but I don't have that yet. So I'll click Export, and this creates a spreadsheet file. I'll open that up here and just stretch it a little bit to see everything. So it shows each resource, their role and skills, and their capacity, their planned time, and their available time, all in hours and FTE. So it looks like they have quite a bit of available time, so that is great. So I can share this file with managers so that they can also see if we have the capacity and availability for work on this project. So now we're ready to start high-level planning to block out time for all the resources that we have. I've already created a Jira project for the upcoming work with some basic epics on a timeline, but I haven't created the individual stories or tasks yet since we're at the early stages. So let's go back to Capacity Planner, and I'm going to create a plan by dragging on this generic resource geologist's timeline for the first 3 weeks, since that's when the other geologists are not available. And this opens the plan time form. So instead of planning on issues, which are now called work items in Jira, I'm going to click Project and select my project to plan time on the project itself, just to keep it very general. I'll enter 8 hours a day so that the resources hours are fully booked for this time, and then click Plan Time. And there it is. And since Vivian, our mining engineer, is also booked these first 3 weeks, I'm going to copy this plan to the mining engineer generic resource. So I'll just press the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows and drag it to their timeline. And I'm done. So that was easy. So making high-level plans like this lets you keep things general until you have more details ready. And this also shows the capacity that's required for this project. So now I'm going to do the same thing to block out time for this actual human, Lars, who I need for my project. I'll just scroll ahead a little bit, and after his medical leave is over, I'll just click on this day, and I'll create a project plan on the same project. I want this work to go until the end of March, so I'll change the end date to that. And again, I'll use the 8 hours to fully book his days. So blocking out time signals to other managers that I need to book this resource for this project at this time. And that can be important if others are competing for the same resources. And now I can copy this plan to Eric, since it's just a general time block. And I'll just drag this end to extend the plan so that there's no gap. I can also copy this plan to Amy, but notice when I drop it, her timeline turns red, which means that she's overbooked. And why is that? If I hover over a day here, you'll see that she has only 4 hours per day available. So the work hours for users are defined in the workload schemes, which we covered in the Setup Capacity Planner webinar. And I'll just click this tab up here, which is open to the Manage Staff page. But to open this page normally, just click the settings icon down in the corner here, and then select Manage Staff. So each resource should be in their correct workload and holiday schemes to determine their capacity for work. So if I search for users and enter Amy, I can find her and see which workload scheme she's in, which is part-time, and the holiday scheme, which is Denmark. I'll go to workload schemes down here, and I see all the defined workload schemes here, including the part-time scheme, which has only 4 hours for each workday. And all employees should also be assigned to the correct holiday scheme, which you can check here. And I'll click Members for the Denmark scheme to see that Amy and these others are in the scheme. So the workload scheme minus the holiday scheme equals the capacity of work for each user. So back in our resource planning view, you can see that the holidays show up in pink, which means that the resources are not available for work on those days. And if you hover, you can see it shows 0 hours. So let's fix Amy's plan and click to open it up, and then change the plan time hours to 4, and then click Update. And you see that her time is now properly booked at 4 out of 4 hours, and her bars turn green. Okay, so we've got some high-level planning done. So now we're going to pretend that we're getting close to the project starting, which means that we're ready to do more refined planning. And this is where the project manager or team lead can plan in more detail for individual resources or their team members. So I'm going to pretend that I'm now the project manager, and I've created specific Jira work items for this project. And once I have those, I can simply edit the plans that I already made at the project level. So let's do one for Lars. I'll open it up and basically swap out Jira projects for specific work items. I've got my issue filter here for my Jira project, and I could select an epic if I needed to still keep the plan fairly general, but I'll scroll down and select this work item. I'll set the end date to be earlier in February since I know more details now. And I'll change the planned time to only 6 hours to allow some wiggle room for meetings and other overhead. And there it is. I can also reassign the plans that I made for generic resources to actual humans. So I could click Reassign Plans here and switch to a real user, which would reassign the plan. And this is good when you have a bunch of plans to reassign at once. I'm going to just close that. But in this case, I can simply drag this plan to Erica, who's another geologist, to reassign the work. And I'll edit this plan because I also want to swap out the project for a work item. And I'll scroll down here and select this one for research work. And then click Update, and I'm done. So that's how you can reassign plans and change from project to work item level without needing to delete and recreate the plans. So now I'm going to show you another way to easily assign plans to resources, and that's to use the Issue Side panel. So you just have to click this little arrow in the middle on the right here. So this panel shows different categories of Jira work items on the tabs here. And you can even click this little menu to switch to other categories. So a good way to work is to first configure this panel by clicking the gear icon up here. So the top 3 items here are the ones that are visible as tabs. So I can drag to change their order if I want, but I want my project to be on the top, so it's the first tab that's shown. I can also add more Jira projects from this list, or add JQL filters here that I've saved to show work items from those. Then just click the X to close this panel. And now I can see all the work items in my project. So to easily create a plan, I can just drag one to someone's timeline. So I'll take this one here and drop it on a day on Catherine's timeline. And that creates a plan for a single day. So if you want to make it longer, you can just drag its end here, and I'll do that for across these 3 weeks. I'll open it up and see the number of hours planned per day and change that to 7 hours per day. And notice this little checkbox down here. This means that I can sync this plan with its Jira work item if I want to. And let's get into what that means. I'll just first click Update to save my changes. So syncing is a very powerful feature in Capacity Planner that lets you have a two-way sync between Jira and individual resource plans, and also team plans, which we'll cover in the team planning webinar. This means that changes in one are automatically reflected in the other, which is obviously a great thing when you're planning and you want to keep up with the changes in real time. And it also saves you a lot of time updating things. So to be able to sync plans, your Tempo admin needs to do some setup first. And this is all covered for them in the Setup Capacity Planning webinar. But let's take a quick look at what they need to do. So they need to go to Settings here and click Plan Time Settings, which is a quick way to get to the planning time page if you're in the resource planning view. And then you can click Configure for the sync option. And you can set the sync option separately for individual plans and for team plans. So you have to check this box to be able to sync individual plans. So when this option is on, it doesn't mean that every plan has to be synced, but it makes it possible to sync if you want to. So let's open this up, and this is where you need to specify which Jira fields you're going to use, which should match your organization's Jira setup. And just a tip here is that we recommend using the original estimate field for the total plan instead of the remaining estimate, since that value can change frequently. So when you create a new Jira work item with all these fields filled out, plans for the assignee here are automatically created, which is pretty cool. So I'm just going to close that, and let's go back to our planning view. And let's open up our Jira project to see how this works. I'm going to go to our Kanban board here where you see the existing work items, and I'll click Create to make a new one. I'll just call it Analyze Lunar Craters. I'll assign it to Vivian. Set the start date as January 12th, the original estimate of 2 weeks, and then set the end date to January 23rd. So I'll create that and then view it. And these are the fields that you need for syncing plans. The tempo panel here will show the plans, and if you don't see the panel, click this icon up here and select tempo. And I'll make sure that I view all plans. But where are the plans? Luckily, that's easy. I just need to go to the time frame for the work item start date, and here they are. A synced plan has been automatically created for every day between the start and end date for this work item. So that is a huge time saver for me. And just a quick note that you can click Plan Time in this menu to manually create a plan, which is convenient when you're working in Jira. And then the plan will show up for that user in Capacity Planner. And notice that you can also check the sync plan option here manually. So let's go back to Capacity Planner to see what this looks like for Vivian. And I'll just close this panel. You might need to reload the page to see the changes. And there it is. This little icon in the corner tells you that this plan is synced with Jira. So now it's clear that Vivian is overbooked at this time, so I need to shift the whole plan forward, which will change the start and end dates. I can even drag it to Scott, which will change the assignee. And those changes are going to be updated in that Jira work item, which I can check here. So you see the assignee and the start and end dates are changed here. And you might need to reload the page if the plans don't show up right away. If you want to undo the syncing and delete the plan, simply remove the data from one of these fields, such as changing this one to unassigned. And then the plan disappears. So we can go back to Capacity Planner to see this. Again, you'll probably need to reload the page. And the plan for Scott is gone. So you can see that syncing is very powerful to help save you time and also to keep plans updated in real time when the project really starts to get underway. So something that you've already noticed, probably by now, but we're going to recap, is that the resource planning view gives you a great view of all your resources in one place, which you can't visualize like this in Jira. And that visual nature really helps you to manage the resources time and to distribute the workload. So let's take a look at that. As I showed you before, clicking the A up here lets you quickly sort your resources by available hours. You can also go to the settings up here and switch to hours instead of cards. And that makes it very clear how many hours are booked, especially when somebody's under or overbooked. So that plus the red, yellow, and green capacity indicators give you immediate visual feedback on who's got room, who's overbooked, and who's just right. You can also show calendar events, and then those events show up for any user who has their Google or Microsoft 365 calendar connected, such as Catherine here. And switch back to cards. And now you can see her total hours with the calendar events included. And you can see her availability, which there's nothing until February. So this really helps you see how many hours can actually be planned for someone as the future becomes much more immediate. If users have multiple plans on their timeline, you can compress the expanded rows, and that helps save some space. Or just compress cards, and that will save vertical real estate as well. And close this panel. And you can also hide the skills if you don't need them anymore, and that will also save you some more room. So I'm going to open this panel and show you another thing that's easy to do visually in Capacity Planner, and that's to balance workloads among resources. So I'm going to drag this work item to Catherine's timeline and then create a plan for 2 weeks for 8 hours a day. This is a mandatory meeting whose time can't be changed. So you can see that Catherine's going to be overbooked here, but I can split this plan and share it with another resource. So here I'm just going to press the Command key on the Mac or the Control key on Windows, and then click on the day where I want to split the plan. So Catherine can go to the meeting for this week, and then I can drag the plan for this other week to Scott, who can also go to the meeting, and he has capacity at the right time. So after you've planned out the time more accurately, you can get a better idea of resource capacity by running a capacity report again, as I showed you before, and you can also run a planned time report. Just click View in Report to get there. And that switches me to the Reports tab. So it builds the report with all of my data that was in the resource planning view. And I can see who's working on which work item and how many hours. I can check their planned capacity, which is the percentage of required hours that are planned. I can add or remove data from this group by field, such as adding specific tempo fields or Jira fields, or also custom fields, which is very powerful. I can change the views to months or to weeks for a less cluttered view. And in this menu, I can also select which columns to show or not. So when I've got the report the way that I want, I'll just go up here and save it. And then give it a name for this project. And then I can share it with others who also have Capacity Planner access, such as Saul here. Or I can export it in different formats, such as to an Excel spreadsheet to bring the data into other management systems, or share it with those outside of Capacity Planner. So those are the main features that you need to understand for project planning or resource planning in Capacity Planner. You'll find your own flow and probably need to do some more tweaking here and there, but now you know what the Capacity Planner features are and basically how to use them for what you need. So thanks for watching and have a great day.
Thanks for that demo of how to plan out your projects. Now, let's go over how Capacity Planner integrates with other Tempo apps. Tempo has a whole suite of apps that can work together to provide business solutions, such as flexible program management, customizable reporting, and comprehensive insights to manage programs and portfolios of any size and complexity. But let's get more specific about how Capacity Planner integrates with these apps. Timesheets is a time tracking and reporting tool, and it's a great partner with Capacity Planner. Once time is planned, it can easily be logged in timesheets, and then you can compare the planned versus actual time spent in a single report. This way, you can gain valuable insights into how planned work is executed. Using Capacity Planner with Financial Manager lets you forecast the financial health of your projects and portfolios. Planned time data is used in Financial Manager to forecast labor costs and revenue, which is an invaluable asset for businesses. Structure uses the planned time data from Capacity Planner as part of a project's management. Structure lets you visualize, track, and manage progress across your Jira projects and teams. And combined with Gantt charts for Structure, you can view the plans for resources on a timeline to schedule work directly in the chart, helping you manage resource allocation across your organization. Finally, with BI connectors, you can link Capacity Planner data to your organization's third-party apps, such as for reports on forecasting capacity and costs. If you'd like to continue your learning journey with Capacity Planner or any other Tempo products, be sure to check out more of our learning resources listed here. As well, you can access our support portal at any time to submit questions so that you can get the answers you're looking for. So thank you for watching this on-demand webinar. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us and we will follow up with you soon. Thanks again and have a great day.